My wife and I met back in college, and we hit it off right away. We were like two peas in a pod, always up for an adventure. After graduation, we tied the knot and started building our dream life together. We even had a little bundle of joy and worked hard to be able to give her the best things in life. Fast forward a few years, and things are going well for us. We have a beautiful home, great friends, and we both have amazing jobs. It's a picture-perfect life. On top of that, according to our daughter's teacher, she has a natural talent for the piano. The decision to foster her love of music was easy, so we looked into hiring an after-school piano instructor for her. One of my neighbors recommended a guy that he used to teach his son how to play the guitar, so we hired him. He's a young man, a recent graduate from music school, just looking for a way to pay his bills. I actually kind of liked him. He seemed like a nice guy. My wife only worked part-time, so she was home during the lessons a lot of the time. He came by every Monday-Wednesday to teach her. By the time I got in, he was usually wrapping things up and getting ready to leave. After a few weeks of him working for us, I started noticing some changes in my wife. She became distant. Her smile seemed forced, and something just felt off. At first, I figured it was work stress messing with my head, but when it continued, I started to worry. The first real clue about something going on came when I saw her get a text message from the piano instructor. She quickly picked her phone up, tilted it away from me while she read it and walked out of the room. That didn't seem like a good sign at all. Instead of jumping to conclusions and accusing her of something, I turned into a bit of a detective. I needed to see how she interacted with him, so I started coming home earlier in the day. I started picking up on some shady vibes, long conversations that seemed a little too cozy and a lot of glances at each other. Their body language was more intimate than it should have been too. My gut told me that there was something more going on. I needed to gather the evidence to prove it. I bought some tiny security cameras, and when my wife was out grocery shopping, I installed them in some prime places. One in the living room overlooking the piano, one in a kitchen and one in our bedroom. It didn't take long for them to have been put to good use. At the end of the first week, they were installed. I checked the footage. As clear as day, my wife watched the instructor come in and start teaching my daughter for an hour. She then sent her room to play, telling her the lesson was over before she led the instructor into the kitchen. They kissed and embraced and did many other things while they thought they were completely alone. That was all I needed to see. Divorce was in it for us. It was the last thing I wanted, but I couldn't accept that behavior and pretend like nothing happened. I was hurt, angry, and confused by her actions. Maybe I shouldn't have done the next part, but I needed to get some kind of revenge on her. We had a dinner planned with some of our friends and neighbors. It was going to be a big thing. All of the kids would be next door with a sitter, and we adults were going to have a few drinks and unwind. I thought it was the perfect time to share what I'd found out about my wife. Before the night of the dinner, I made sure to invite our piano instructor. He tried to decline, but I insisted he come. He eventually accepted the invite when he thought he might get a few new clients. During the dinner, while the spirits were high, I stood up and made a toast. I turned to my wife and told her how glad I was to have found out who she really was. I said that being married to her for 20-something more years would have been torture. She looked hurt and confused, then I explained that I didn't want to be married to a cheater. The room was silent. She looked at me as if she had no idea what I was talking about. So I elaborated and told everyone about the affair she had with the piano instructor. I pulled the video up on my phone and held it out for everyone to see. Everyone in the room was shocked and stared at me as if I had two heads. It didn't take long for people to take their leave and my wife and I were left alone in her house. She asked me how I knew, and I explained it all. She told me that it had just happened and she never meant for it to go as far as it did, then begged me for a second chance. I just told her that I meant what I said and informed her to keep an eye out for divorce papers. The neighbor that recommended the instructor to me called me a few days later and apologized. He'd apparently felt partially responsible for what happened. He told me that he fired him and called a few other people he referred to him, and explained the story. He expected that he would lose those jobs too. In an effort to keep things calm and normal for our kid, I'm letting my wife keep the house, though she still has $101,000 in payments left to make on her own without any disposal support. We have come to an agreement for custody, and we're going to try to be as cordial as possible for our daughter Sake. Oh, P. It's such a shame that you had to go through this. You hired someone to help your daughter learn a new skill that she enjoyed, and your wife ruined that. She saw an opportunity to betray you, and she took it without hesitation. On top of that, she deprived her own daughter of a proper musical education by spending time with him. You did the right thing by trusting your gut and pursuing information on your own. I doubt she would have confessed her wrongdoings otherwise. I just hope that you and your ex can successfully co-parent your daughter as you're attempting to. I wish you well, and I hope you can move forward and trust partner again in the future. Now let's move on to our next story. Me, 39 male, and my wife, 39 female, have been married for 12 years. We met at work, and after developing a solid friendship, we decided to take our relationship further. Once we were dating, we never looked back. Our lives fit together perfectly. She truly felt like the missing puzzle piece in my life. We married, had 2 kids, bought a house, and adopted a puppy. She ended up resigning so she could stay home with the kids after I got a big promotion that more than made up for the loss of her income. With that promotion came late nights at the office and business trips out of town. She and I both thought that my occasional absence from home was worth it in the long run because we didn't want to be one of the couples that has to hire a nanny to raise our kids. Everything was going great until my wife slipped and fell at a grocery store. Some careless employee didn't put a sign up after they mopped, so she injured herself. The fall was mostly mild, but she was left with some lingering back pain. I did what I could help her. I didn't mind giving her a back rub when she was sore, and I'd help her whenever possible. As good as I like to think I am with my hands, even I have to admit my massages are nothing compared to our professionals. We ended up searching online for some massage parlors in the area with good reviews. We found one and she booked her first treatment. I didn't think anything of it. I assumed it would be somewhat like a spa day for her. I thought she would be laying on a table with flute music in the background, while someone rubbed oil into her back. But when she came back, I realized it was something different. She had this glow about her that I'd never seen. She told me about how light she felt and how amazing it was. Later that night, we even had sex for the first time since she'd fallen because she wasn't in pain. At first, I almost wanted to send the Matthews a muffin basket or something for helping her. I paid for a 2-month-long service where she was scheduled to get another massage once a week. I was just happy that she wouldn't be in pain anymore. The next lesson came and she had the same glow she did when she got home. I asked her about how it was, but she didn't give as many details. She shrunk her shoulders and told me it was about the same. Not gonna lie. I was a little excited thinking I might get to spend some intimate time with her later that night. When we got in bed, she just rolled right over and went to sleep. I didn't let it bother me, and I did the same. This continued for the next 2 massages she had. On top of her not sleeping with me for 3 weeks, she'd been growing distant. She hardly wanted to be in a room alone with me. She didn't want to have our date nights. And it felt like every conversation we had was surface level. I was going to be away on a business trip for a week, so I wanted to do something to try and bring us together before I left. One thing I knew she loved was those massages. I was curious about them myself, so I booked us a couples massage. It was a complete surprise. I didn't even tell her we were going on a date when we drove there. My wife was shocked to see why I planned. Looking back, the shock was probably anxiety or fear because I was going to be in the room with her and her lover. But at the time I trusted her and didn't think she could ever hurt me, so that was the last thing on my mind. The receptionist was friendly with my wife, asking about how her Matthews had been helping. For the first time, I realized it was a man. That wasn't a red flag right away. I knew that many men worked in the industry, but I was surprised my wife hadn't mentioned that. I know that if the tables were turned and a woman was massaging me once a week, I'd have told her. The Matthews came out a while later to get us and bring us to our room. I'm not an insecure guy, but when I saw him, I was a little paranoid about why my wife hadn't mentioned anything about him. He was very attractive. We walked into the room, and we were getting ready to begin. Another masseuse came in for me, an older woman, and we began. I had never had a professional massage before, so I was pretty into it. But I was trying to pay attention to my wife too. At one point during a massage, I looked over and saw her masseuse sensually running his hands down her back, lingering right above her butt. Red flags were going off as soon as I noticed that. Her tower was lower than it should have been, and she wasn't complaining at all. I couldn't keep myself from wondering if that was how all of the massages went, and if he went even lower when I wasn't there. When everything was done, we went back home. My mom had the kids for the night because I had originally intended on trying to be intimate with my wife, but I was too preoccupied after. I waited for her to go to sleep before I quietly reached for her phone and went to my office to look through it. I found the messages between her and the Matthews. Notably, they were under a fake name of a woman named Emma. My suspicions were confirmed as I read through. They ended up sleeping together after the second massage, and they continued their affair every time she visited the office. They exchanged some suggestive text messages, and picture what hurt the most was seeing how easily she was able to pretend like I didn't even exist. There wasn't a single mention of guilt or remorse in any of the messages. I sent myself some screenshots of the messages and started packing my things to leave for my business trip. I would have a week to figure out what I was going to do from there. I left in the morning and pretended like everything was fine. While I was away, I thought about all of my options. I refused to stay with someone who cheated on me. I firmly believe that there is no changing a person like that. Divorce was my only option. With the screenshots I grabbed from my wife's phone, I could prove that she had violated our production agreement, so I knew I would pretty much get everything in the divorce. After some thinking, I decided the best thing for me to do would be to really ham it up and catch her in the act. I knew that would embarrass her, and that would give me the grounds to get the masseuse fired. From what I read in their messages, they had been having sex in the room she was supposed to be getting her massages. When I got back, the first day that my wife was scheduled to go in for her treatment, I made my way over. I waved at the receptionist as I casually walked by her. She tried to stop me, but I ignored her. I knew where my wife was and what I was doing. She followed me on the way there, yelling for me to go back to the lobby since the massages are private. I opened the door with the receptionist right behind me, and saw my wife on the table with the masseuse on top of her. The receptionist audibly gasped and rushed back to the front desk. My wife was begging me not to cause a scene. None of it was a surprise to me, so I didn't. I told her right there that we would be getting a divorce, and she pleaded with me to reconsider and think about the kids. I contacted the business owner of the massage parlor and told him about what happened. The Matthews was fired on the spot for sleeping with a client on the property. I called all of the other local places and told them about what happened so they wouldn't hire him either. My soon-to-be ex-wife and I are beginning our divorce proceedings soon. She thinks she'll be awarded the house, cars, and spousal support for me, but she has a surprise in store. I never told her that I knew about the affair before I caught them. I honestly can't wait to see the look on her face when she realizes it. I'm so sorry this happened to you. You did something nice for your wife, and it ended up opening a window for her to show you her true colors. It's such a shame that she would throw away 12 years and a happy family for a brief affair with the Matthews. From what it sounds like, she is trying to be vindictive in the divorce hearings. I really hope that you are favored when you provide the evidence you have of the affair. I wish you well in the divorce hearings, and I hope you don't let this keep you from being happy in the future. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened.